They will be dissolved on Saturday to make way for the state election. Menteri Besar Datuk Seri Aminuddin Harun said the proposed date had received the consent of the Yang di-Pertuan Besar. The announcement comes as Penang, Kedah and Terengganu dissolved their state assemblies earlier today. Negeri Sembilan is among the 6 states that will hold state polls besides Selangor, Terengganu, Penang, Kelantan and Kedah. The elections for these states are expected to be held concurrently in the first 2 weeks of August after dissolutions of state legislative assemblies. Muda will contest in the state polls under its own logo and open candidate applications to the public today. Farah Dharma from Baharu Group Asia assesses if the party is able to independently rally and attract voters to support its cause.
If we talk about performance in the upcoming elections, in terms of direct electoral results or direct seat winnings, Muda might not yet have the ability to have that stronger upper hand. But I think this upcoming election, compared to the previous elections, is quite different in a sense that this is an opportunity for Muda to really differentiate themselves and really take that principled stance that they didn't really take before, right? Because before they were quite open with seat negotiations, but this time around, because they aren't registered officially in the unity government, so it's their opportunity to rethink their position within the political sphere. It's their opportunity to, still have that flexibility to run on their own. So that is that opportunity for them to differentiate themselves before, having to wait another 4 years to do the same. So it's kind of this area where they will restart that momentum. It's the time for them to kind of test out ideas, tease out some maybe weaknesses they have in regards to branding, in regards to how they campaign.
Muda will also shift most of its campaigning online, a move that Farah sees as a potential targeting of urbanites.
So targeting, the urban areas of Selangor and Klang Valley, for example, which can be a challenge because it sort of alienates certain demographics. But maybe for this election, that shows that might be their priority at the moment and what they have the capacity to do during their social media ramp up. Yes, it is a challenge because they're sort of alienating that other groups of people. And currently, social media is no longer viewed as a competitive advantage. It's more of a necessity rather than a competitive advantage. So what Muda can do differently, it depends on their branding. It depends on how they market themselves to the people, these urbanites. So why are they targeting urbanites? It's potentially because those are the people who are very well read, very well informed. They keep up with social media news. They're very well in tune with what is going on in the government right now, but they haven't been fully convinced of who to vote for. They haven't, been swayed from one side to the other. So this is the opportunity for Muda to really, move these so-called fence-sitters to their side.
As a political party that focuses on youth-centric policies, will Muda be able to secure the young people's votes? Farah discusses its chances against other well-established coalitions.
An area that they might, have overlooked, or at least maybe they're looking into, is that some youth, they are more influenced by factors like religion, for example. Some youth, the issue that they're facing right now is they don't see Muda as a very big differentiator or a very big third force as they would like to be. Reason being because they don't have that grassroots support or grassroots as their anchor. So that's one. Two would be that some voters, they look at ideologies to sway them from one side to the other. So Muda's ideologies with Pakatan Harapan, for example, has been relatively similar. So when they don't see that differentiating factor, the second option they go to would be the voices who are representing them, the personalities. So they might see, for example, Pakatan Harapan having a stronger voice in parliament compared to Muda, who only has one seat in parliament. So those are some of the considerations that the youth look at right now, that it's just that they haven't been convinced just yet, which is okay because Muda is a relatively new party. They're still building their ground, they're still building their voter base. So this is something that won't happen overnight and will need to continue to be built. But I think championing strong issues with regards to youths, you talk about new politics, you talk about moving away from the legacy of politics, all of these are important factors that will factor into, potential voters in the future.
Meanwhile, PAS said only 10% of its candidates for the upcoming polls will be youth. Party youth chief Ahmad Fadli Shahri admitted the party faces difficulties in meeting its 30% target in fielding young candidates. PAS President Tan Sri Abdul Hadi Awang had set the target a few years ago. However, Fadli said PN, of which PAS is a component, together with Bersatu and Gerakan, hopes to field many young candidates, but they don't have to be PAS youth members. The Pasir Mas MP added that although having more young candidates will make young voters feel valued, fielding winnable candidates will be the party's focus. The government will ensure Malaysians see an increase in salary commensurate with the rise in living costs. Economy Minister Rafizi Ramli said his ministry is currently developing the framework with the Human Resources Ministry so that salary growth becomes steadier and more inclusive.
Kalaupun kerajaan menumpukan 100% kepada soal harga barang tetapi tidak menumpukan kepada usaha-usaha melalui dasar dan inisiatif untuk menaikkan gaji rakyat secara setimpal, maka masyarakat kita akan terus bergelumang dengan persoalan kos sara hidup.
Rafizi said the first presentation of the progressive salary policy will be presented to the National Economic Action Council in August. Meanwhile, he said that Malaysia's inflation rate has continued to record a decline 9 months in a row, with the rate for May at 2.8%, the lowest observed in the past year. This, according to him, reflects a continuous trend of increasingly stable prices.
Felda has signed an agreement involving a government guarantee to restructure the agency's loan. Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim says this involves the issuance of sukuk and revolving credit to restore Felda's financial position.
Anwar, who is also Finance Minister, said a major part of Felda's loan restructuring was the reduction of Felda's debt principal with financial institutions by 7.9 billion ringgit. It will also lower Felda's financial costs in terms of interest rates and enable the agency to abolish 80% of settlers' debt, which amounted to 8.3 billion ringgit and was implemented in 2021. Anwar added that Putrajaya has improved governance of fund distribution to Felda as a statutory agency by appointing Amanah Raya trustees as the trustees for account transactions. This is to ensure that Felda's transformation plan was on track and meets the requirements of accountability and integrity.
Local rice prices will not rise in July, according to the Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security. Deputy Minister Chan Foong Hin said the ceiling price of 2 ringgit and 60 cents per kg for local rice would be maintained. Consumers can file complaints with the enforcement authority if a retailer exceeds this.
He said the country's self-sufficiency level was at 65%, with only 35% of rice imported. Despite the El Niño phenomenon and shortfall in the Kedah rice harvest, output in Perak and Pahang had increased. Hence, with 1 million tons of domestic rice on hand, Chan assured that the supply of rice would be enough for 5.5 months. Previously, industry players had also indicated that the price of imported rice would rise by 1 to 2 ringgit in July due to bad weather and the weakening ringgit. Chan said while there is no price control on imported rice, the ministry will continue to monitor prices. Due to retailer competition, he said some imported rice can cost less than controlled local rice prices.
We'll go for a quick break. Stay tuned.
Petronas is pleased to partner with CERAWeek by S&P Global to co-create Energy Asia 2023 as a flagship strategic platform to advance solutions and develop clear targets and policies.
Roadmaps will be explored, debated and defined.
It's a question of technology, it's a question of finance, and it's a question of innovation.
See you at Energy Asia 2023 in Kuala Lumpur.
Jack Yusof.
Saya anak Encik Jack dengan...
Aku tak lonely. Lonely macam everything. Ta-da!
Kau pindah next door?
Why not?
Baharu.
Come to Mama. Drag Yourself, stream episod baru setiap Sabtu on demand dan Isnin di Astro Ria dan Astro Go. Syafiq Kyle berbakat besar.
Kita kaya tau sekarang.
Dia penggodam genius.
Ada orang hack server.
Seorang wira dalam suatu misi.
Lepaskan dia! Apa kau bukan macam hantu ni?
Sukar diramalkan.
It's for you.
Dan anda pasti jatuh hati kepadanya setiap masa. Syafiq Kyle untuk anda dekati. Stream kesemuanya di satu tempat.
Apa jua yang berlaku di sekeliling kita, pastinya ada punca dan kesan masing-masing. Faktor harga, ekonomi, pengaruh politik dalam atau luar negara memberikan impak kepada kehidupan harian kita. Di Niaga Awani, kami memberikan gambaran jelas melalui analisis mendalam, merentas pelbagai segmen dan latar belakang. Kami akan bantu anda untuk faham segalanya. Bisnes, ekonomi, pasaran, Niaga Awani, 9 pagi, Isnin hingga Jumaat, hanya di Astro Awani.
Tapi dalam masa sama, rakyat akan dapat merasa semua limpahannya.
Seharusnya, sepantasnya menggunakan all these kemudahan teknologi ini.
Sekurang-kurangnya diploma. Kita memerlukan guru-guru yang berkualiti. Itu perkara yang paling asas dalam sistem pendidikan.
Bagaimana nak mengubah persepsi mereka yang menggunakan web?
Kita tidak bercakap berdasarkan testimoni semata-mata.
Agenda Awani setiap hari di Astro Awani dan Astro Go.
Jika smash anda seperti pro, Astro Rewards memberikan anda peluang untuk bersinar di Astro Badminton Cup. Pelanggan Astro boleh memenangi sebahagian daripada RM30,000. Daftar Astro Rewards sekarang di My Astro.
Family Feud! Come on!
Apa ciri-ciri seorang lelaki? Apa jawapan Amal?
Kerja.
Keyakinan. Mana nak tahu?
Cengaru.
Husband pada husband.
Husband.
Menggambarkan.
Pandai kelakar. Kelakar. Handsome.
Dan meriah. Family Feud Malaysia. Isnin 11 malam di Astro Ria dan Astro Go. Hentikan penyebaran kandungan berbau hasutan. Dekati kedamaian, pupuk persefahaman dan jauhi perbalahan. Bersama-sama kita memupuk semangat perpaduan. Hindari sebarang tindakan yang boleh mencetuskan provokasi kaum. Raikan hari perayaan di Malaysia bersama-sama dengan mengunjungi antara satu sama lain. Selain mengeratkan silaturahim, masyarakat juga dapat memahami dan menghormati perayaan di Malaysia. Sertai aktiviti kemasyarakatan dan sukan bersama-sama. Dan sebaran mesej positif mengenai kepentingan perpaduan oleh media massa. Sekiranya terdapat maklumat kandungan sensitif, berbaur agama, bangsa dan institusi diraja atau 3R, laporkan kepada Suruhanjaya Komunikasi dan Multimedia Malaysia SKMM.
Welcome back. Protests and unrest erupted in the Paris region overnight after police shot dead a 17-year-old who failed to stop when ordered to by traffic police. Video circulating on social media shows a police officer pointing a gun at the driver of a car before a gunshot was heard. The car then crashed to a stop. French President Emmanuel Macron had described the shooting dead of the boy inexcusable.
The teenager, named as Nail M, died of bullet wounds in the chest despite help from emergency services. The officer accused of shooting him has been detained on homicide charges. The shooting triggered a series of protests on Tuesday night in Nanterre, the area just west of Paris where the teenager was killed. Some 24 people were arrested following the disorder. Nail M is the second person this year in France to have been killed in a police shooting during a traffic stop. Last year, a record 13 people died in this way.
Japanese regulators have begun final inspections on a newly completed system for the release of treated radioactive water from the wrecked Fukushima nuclear plant. If the inspection goes well, the permit for releasing the water could be issued about a week later.
Plant operator Tokyo Electric Power Company Holdings, TEPCO, could start discharging the water soon after the permit is approved, although an exact date has yet to be decided. Japan's government first announced the plan in April 2021, facing fierce protests at home and abroad. Local fishing communities in Japan are concerned about safety and reputational damage, while many environmentalists have warned about the dangers towards the ocean and marine life. Protests have been ongoing in neighboring countries, with some in China even boycotting Japanese cosmetic products and Hong Kong banning seafood from the high-risk area, all due to contamination concerns. The water, currently stored in over 1,000 tanks at the plant, needs to be removed to prevent accidental leaks and for the plant's decommissioning, said Japanese officials. They say the treated but still slightly radioactive water will be diluted to levels safer than international standards and will be released gradually into the ocean over decades.
NATO said it is ready to defend itself against any threat posed by the move of Russia's Wagner mercenary force to Belarus. Lithuania and Poland had both expressed concern that relocation of the private army could create instability to the Eastern European region.
In Belarus,
NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg said it was too early to assess the impact of the move, but that the alliance was ready to defend itself against any threat. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, who brokered a deal to end the Wagner mutiny over the weekend, said Wagner leader Yevgeny Prigozhin had arrived in the country. Prigozhin accepted exile in Belarus as part of an amnesty deal after briefly threatening that his mercenaries would turn their guns on Moscow. NATO has increased its military presence on its eastern flank in recent days after Belarus welcomed Prigozhin.
A Thai court has acquitted 5 pro-democracy protesters indicted on charges of attempted violence against Thailand's queen during a demonstration in 2020. The offense could have seen them sentenced to a 16-year in prison or even the death penalty.
The case stemmed from an event at the height of pro-democracy demonstrations in 2020, when a motorcade carrying Queen Suthida was heckled as it drove past a group of protesters. According to Thai lawyers for human rights, the court saw that police did not clear the way for the royal motorcade. There was also no announcement before the procession. The 5 activists were indicted under the lese majesty law, which forbids the insult of the monarchy.
A painting by Austrian artist Gustav Klimt has sold for £85.3 million, making it the most valuable work of art ever sold at auction in Europe. The painting, a portrait of an unnamed woman, was sold after a tense 10-minute bidding war at auction house Sotheby's.
The painting, entitled Lady with a Fan, was sold to a Hong Kong collector. It was Klimt's last painting. In fact, the portrait was still on an easel in Klimt's studio when the painter died in 1918. Described as a masterpiece by an artist at the height of his powers, the painting has strong Asian influences and is part of the Japanism movement, which refers to the influence of Japanese art and design on Western European artists. Sotheby's said the painting was one of a small number of portraits by Klimt in private collections. It is now the most expensive Klimt work to be sold at auction anywhere in the world. It was last offered for sale nearly 30 years ago when it was purchased by the family of the present owner for £9 million.
Now that wraps up Awani Tonight. Thanks for watching. I'm Soraya Mia, and on behalf of the entire Awani Tonight team, I'd like to wish all Muslims Selamat Hari Raya Aidil Adha. Good night.